What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to talk about the September 12th Nintendo Direct, the first Nintendo Direct on a Friday, and it had a weird vibe going into it, right? Direct on a Friday. We sort of knew about this Direct weeks before it happened, and obviously there was a lot of hype and a lot of expectations around this presentation. The first big Direct of the Switch 2 generation, 60 minutes long. People were expecting these stars and the moon coming into today. Did they get it? Well, if you look at Twitter, the answer is no. People are not happy with this Direct by and large. But I'm here to say, I thought it was pretty darn good. It was missing that one big announcement of an S-tier franchise for Nintendo, like, Animal Crossing or Smash or 3D Mario or 3D Zelda. But it had a lot of cool announcements, and Nintendo is really starting to round out 2026 in what I think is a very strong way. So let's get right into it and do what we usually do on this channel, going through the announcements that I was interested in, and then at the end, looking more broadly at how we felt about this Direct and what it could mean going forward. So the Nintendo Direct opened with a segment for Mario's 40th anniversary. I heard a lot of people in my comments saying they weren't going to do this, and I said, guys, they did it during COVID, they're going to do it now. I thought it was going to be a separate Mario 40th Direct. Obviously, they just wrapped it into a general. To be fair, this was sort of its own thing, right? The first 20 minutes were Mario, the next 40 minutes were other Nintendo and third-party games, so they could have done their own Direct if they wanted to, but they felt like combining them. And I think that's because they just didn't have a lot of big new announcements for non-Mario franchises at this Direct. But regardless, there were a lot of cool Mario announcements, so let's get into those. The first one was not a game announcement. It was that the next Mario movie is called the Super Mario Galaxy movie. This is really cool. I never thought Nintendo would go back to the Galaxy aesthetic and vibe. It's been so long since the Wii era where obviously they went really hard into Galaxy with 2 games on the system, but we're going back to it, and I think that's so darn cool. I think this movie could look absolutely stunning. Like, say what you want about the Mario movie, I thought the animation was really good. Imagining that in space with all those colors and just actions that the characters could do, I think this could be a really, really cool movie for Mario. Unfortunately, this did get leaked yesterday because someone found Old Spice deodorant with the logo on it and a new Yoshi render, which we actually didn't see, so time will tell if that Yoshi render is actually legit or not, but obviously the leak itself was legit. Mario Galaxy movie coming out in spring of 2026. I'm excited for it, and I'm excited because it also means perhaps Mario Galaxy 3 is next to come, but I'm going to do a separate video on that, I think, because there's some interesting little details that could be pointing to that, and we'll get into that at a different time. For now, Mario Galaxy movie, really cool. Speaking of Mario Galaxy, we got a Galaxy 1 and 2 collection announced for the Nintendo Switch. There's also a free update for Switch 2 that offers better graphics and performance, which I'm surprised they didn't mention in this Direct. It comes out on October 2nd, so that is right around the corner. It's the same freaking day as Ghost of Yote. Like, guys, can we communicate here? Like, why can we space out our releases, gaming industry? God, it's crazy. People online were mad that these are $40 each or $70 for the bundle, and look, I can't blame you for being mad about that. Galaxy 1 was technically $20 in the 3D All-Stars collection, now it's $40. And as much as I love these games, it doesn't really seem like they've done much of anything to them. They mentioned that they added new pages to Rosalina's book, which is sort of funny, but in terms of gameplay, it is the same. In terms of aesthetic, it is the same. And that's good, right? Those games are perfect in my eyes. They don't need any changes, but it does make that price tag a little harder to swallow. Also, it seems like you need to buy the new version of Mario Galaxy to get that free Switch 1 upgrade, meaning that if you have 3D All-Stars and by proxy Mario Galaxy, you won't be able to take advantage of those additional graphics and performance and all of that stuff, which is really disappointing. I am holding out hope that maybe 3D All-Stars gets a free Switch 2 update whenever we get the next batch of those. I think that is possible, if a little unlikely, so I'm holding out hope for that. I will be buying Galaxy 2. Sorry, I'm a part of the problem. I want to play that freaking game again, but the price tag is a little frustrating. We then got something that I don't think is frustrating whatsoever, Mario Tennis Fever. Boy, I think this might have been my game of the show. Releasing February 12th, which is exciting, just a few months away. It's got new fever rackets and a fever gauge, which is sort of similar to how Aces did it with the HP and the special meter that you would charge up. But the cool thing about this is you can swap rackets. There are 30 rackets in this game, all with different power-ups, and you can swap them between the 38 playable characters in this game. I think I want to do a video on this game because it's going to be really fun to predict who we could see on this roster. This is the biggest Mario spin-off roster, not counting Mario Kart, that we have ever seen. And that fixes my biggest issue with these Mario sports titles on the Switch, and that's that it was a lot of post-launch content. It was a lot of drip feeding where every month you'd get one character, and it kind of killed the game because people maybe bought it initially and had fun for a few weeks, but they never wanted to come back because there just wasn't enough content in the game. But we saw in this trailer 38 characters, 30 different rackets, a story mode, a challenge mode, all sorts of weird little modes within the game and the gameplay. It really feels like Camelot took the criticisms of the previous Mario sports games into account and really took their time with this one. And obviously, given the timeline that this is going to come out almost 5 years after Mario Golf, it's pretty evident that they took a little more time with this, but I'm glad they did because I think it solved a lot of my issues with this series and with the last few games in the Mario Sports franchise. I also want to bring up that adventure mode because it looks awesome. The cutscenes in the adventure mode just look tremendous, and it seems like there's a cool little plot to the adventure mode where the Mario characters, including Waluigi, get turned into babies, which means, yes, for the first time, we have baby Waluigi, which that alone makes this an A+ Direct, getting to see baby Waluigi in the flesh. But I thought it looked cool. It looked like an evolution of Mario Golf's single-player campaign where you're running around this semi-open world, you're leveling up your players, there's probably RPG mechanics involved. I think this is just in every possible way the next step for Mario Sports, and that really does excite me. Again, it's coming out February 12th, so we're not too far away from what seems to be maybe the best Mario Sports game ever. Next announcement, Mario Wonder Switch 2 Edition. This was not surprising. I think everyone and their mother was predicting a Mario Wonder Switch 2 Edition, but it was surprising to see that it's not coming until spring of 2026. That really surprised me. I thought this would be a September game, potentially, and if not, maybe October or November. But no, it's going to come out closer to the Mario movie, which I think is smart, to have a Switch 2 Mario game on shelves. But the good news is this update looks terrific. There's this new Bella Bell Park mode where there's all sorts of co-op stages that you can play with your friends. Hopefully you can play those online with randoms like you could the normal levels in Mario Wonder. That would be really cool. We didn't get any confirmation on that yet. And that alone, honestly, would have made it the best Switch 2 edition. Like, it seemed like there were a lot of levels in there. Someone on Twitter found that Rosalina is apparently playable in that mode. But then they also teased a new single-player campaign of some sort with Captain Toad and the Koopalings, and you could see on that little glimpse they showed of the map, there were new levels. So it's probably going to be some sort of single-player campaign on top of the really cool co-op mode that we're getting with all those new challenges. So this is shaping up to easily be the best Switch 2 edition, and I'm glad because I adore Mario Wonder. I have a tradition now where I 100% it every year. I have a video on it that did really well. If you want to check that out, maybe I'll link it in the description. Regardless, I adore Mario Wonder, one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm so glad we're going to get more content for it early next year. We then had our final Mario announcement, which was Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, which I must admit is sort of a stupid name. Kind of awkward, but the game itself does not look stupid. I love this cool, hand-drawn, stop-motion sort of art style. To me, it is inspired really heavily by Yoshi's Island and Yoshi's story, right? Yoshi's story with the whole storybook thing and how that guides the narrative and the progression. And then Yoshi's Island, of course, in the art style. It really does feel like a modernized version of Yoshi's Island. Much better than that ugly new Yoshi's Island game they released for the DS. This is how a modern Yoshi's Island type game should look. And I was a huge fan of both Woolly World and Crafted World, so I'm super excited for this game. I know a lot of people have their issues with those games, but I feel like Good Feel has only made one game that I haven't liked, and that was Princess Peach Showtime. Every other Good Feel game I've at least had a little fun with to a lot of fun with. And the Yoshi games they've made, I think have been terrific. So assuming this is good feel, I think it is. Obviously, there's always drama around Nintendo and who's making their games, but I'd imagine this is good feel, and I think this game is going to be terrific. It looks really cute, really colorful, coming spring 2026, so another early 2026 game for Nintendo, and it's either this or Mario Tennis Fever that is my most anticipated announcement coming in that window. Also, I've got the shirt. I came prepared, so big day for me personally. And big day for Yoshi Lover 33. I wonder how he feels. Might have to ask him. Woohoo! What's up, guys? It's Yoshi Lover 33. We then got into the non-Mario section of the Direct, and I will admit, this is where the Direct got a little more inconsistent. I still thought there were a lot of cool announcements. Just looking at all the stuff I have written down on my tablet here, there's still a ton of cool stuff that we saw in this part of the Direct. But I will admit, it was a little inconsistent from here on out. But again, a lot of cool stuff that we got to see, so let's get into that too. We first got some Switch 1 games, and again, I'm not going to go over every game we saw, because there were a lot of smaller games that didn't really interest me in this Direct. So, if you're looking for a Pocopo review or whatever that farming sim game was they showed at the beginning, you're in the wrong place.
Dinkum launches as a timed console exclusive on the Nintendo Switch system November 5th.
But again, there was a lot of stuff I was interested in, so it's going to be a little lengthy here. The only Switch 1 game that really struck me as interesting is Tomodachi Life Living the Dream. Of course, we talked about this back in March, how exciting it was to get a new Tomodachi Life game. And I think this trailer really cemented how excited I am for this game. They didn't reveal a lot of new stuff. They did show that it was more top-down, and it seemed more customizable and interactable with how the town looked and how robust that Mii Maker looked. It seemed like there was an icon in that Mii Maker for makeup, which would suggest that Grezzo's Mii Maker that was terrific in Miitopia is returning for this game. And actually, I kind of think Grezzo's making this game, if you ask me personally. It was interesting to not see a Switch 2 edition of this game announced, because I think a lot of people expected basically every Switch 1 game from here on out to get a Switch 2 edition. But I think what this suggests is that some of the Switch games that they can't think of new content to charge $20 for, or even a feature like mouse mode or 120 FPS mode in Prime 4 Beyond that they can charge $10 for, I think they're just going to give free updates for those games. So I don't think every Switch 1 game from here on out is going to have a Switch 2 edition, but rather just a Switch 2 free upgrade. We saw that as well with Galaxy and Galaxy 2, where it says in the eShop that they will be enhanced on the Switch 2, but there's no upgrade pack to buy, which I think is a good thing. I'm glad they're not charging extra for, just up-resing it to 1080p 60 on the Switch 2, right? I'm glad they're distinguishing where if it's a game that looks better, runs better, but isn't going above and beyond, that's a free upgrade. If it's a game that's getting, maybe more sizable upgrades, like in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond's case, it's 10 more bucks. And then if it is getting new content, it's 20 bucks. I think that makes sense. Obviously, there are people who are going to complain regardless about charging extra for DLC and stuff, and I get that. But for me, I think that system does make a lot of sense, and I would be surprised if we don't get a free update for Tomodachi Life. Or there will be a Switch 2 edition, and they just haven't told us yet. But considering this game comes out in spring of 2026, I think we're going to get this game in the next half year, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of time to reveal new Switch 2 content for this game. I will say I am holding out hope for some sort of mouse mode in this game, because we saw in the trailer you can kind of drag around your Miis in your town, so just a perfect implementation of mouse mode if they decide to do that. I hope they do. Again, this trailer looked cool. It really cemented that we're getting a new freaking Tomodachi Life. I can't wait. I can't wait to mess around in this game when it comes out in spring of 2026. We saw Final Fantasy VII Remake get announced for January 26th. That's exciting. I thought it was going to be this year. The port seems really good, so I'm surprised it wasn't, but they want a little extra time, no problem there. And it's coming out really early in 2026, so pretty cool. Hades 2 is coming September 25th, just 2 weeks from now for Hades 2. I mean, we've already seen most of this game, right? Because it's been in early access on Steam, but boy, the trailer looked terrific. I'm disappointed there's no 120 FPS mode in handheld. I was hoping for that, but, just another trailer for Hades 2 that looks great. Glad it's coming out soon. Excited for that. The next announcement was a really left field one. Kirby Air Riders Amiibo. Not only Kirby Air Riders Amiibo, but Kirby Air Riders Amiibo that you can swap. You can swap the tops and the bases of these Amiibo and sort of customize them yourself. I think that's really funny. Look, I'm not going to pick up these. We got a lot of Amiibo announced in this Direct. I'm probably not going to pick up any of them because they're like $40 each now thanks to tariffs and, Nintendo raising their prices. But man, if this isn't the cutest thing ever, I might just buy one so that I can use the training mode. Similar to Smash, they have a mode where you can train up your Amiibo and make them better. Very funny that Sakurai is just taking all these different ideas from Smash and incorporating them into Air Riders. We also got the announcement of a second Kirby Air Riders Direct. Sort of odd they didn't give us a date for it. I think it's going to come in October though, so I guess it just makes sense to get it out there. Hey, it's coming, don't worry. I think a lot of people were worried this game is going to be kind of small and not have a lot of content in it, just because that first Kirby Air Riders Direct was a lot more routine, I guess. It showed us a lot more of the granular, basic stuff, and people were like, well, this game doesn't seem that interesting, and I keep saying, like, guys, this is a Sakurai game, right? He gave us 3 Smash Directs, and in each Smash Direct for Smash Ultimate, he revealed a bunch of new cool stuff. That World of Light mode, we didn't see at all until the final Smash Direct, I'm pretty sure. So, like, Sakurai is known to hide things. Sakurai is known to hold things back for future presentations or even just the games themselves. And Sakurai is known for putting a bunch of random crap in his games as well that just add to the experience. So I've heard that discourse a lot around Kirby Air Riders, and I'm glad we're getting a second Direct, which I think will calm people's fears a little, because I think we'll see Top Ride, I think we'll see the single-player mode that Sakurai teased at the end of the first Direct. I'm not worried about this game at all. I think it's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see that second Direct, presumably next month. We then finally got a date for Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. It's coming November 6th, which is earlier than people thought. I thought it was interesting. We'll talk about Metroid in a second. They're releasing 3 amiibos for Metroid. 2 of them are coming out on November 6th, a month ahead of the game, and the third one is coming out on December 4th with the release of Prime 4 Beyond. I think that game was supposed to come out on November 6th. I think that game got delayed a month, and Hyrule Warriors got moved up, right? Because you have those Metroid amiibos coming out on the 6th of November, but the game's not coming out till a month later. They originally told us Hyrule Warriors was going to come out this winter. Now it's coming out late fall. I think those 2 games might have swapped, which really doesn't matter, but I think it is kind of interesting, just from a speculation perspective. Like, it is fun to see that I think those games definitely swapped in the timeline, but Hyrule Warriors looks great. It seems to be running really smoothly, which is good. That was a big problem with the first game, and I'm excited to try out Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment because I thought Calamity was pretty good, but A, the story wasn't great, and B, I thought the just gameplay and like progression system in general wasn't the best. And in this game, the story looks a lot better. It looks like it's real. It's not an alternate timeline thing. And I've heard that Koei Tecmo has gotten better in recent years with their game design and with their progression systems for their Warriors games. So I think they will carry that over to Age of Imprisonment. And I'm really excited to play this game when it comes out in November. Next up was Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. We heard rumors of a Dragon Quest VII remaster or remake of some kind coming out next year. I think Jason Schreier was the one who really got that rumor going. This looked way better than I expected. The 3DS version isn't like super ugly, but it's a 3DS game. It doesn't look the best. This looks terrific. I mean, the cutscenes are beautiful. Just the game in general looks really good. It's got that weird like Dragon Quest people art style that is a little off-putting, but like in terms of how the game actually looks, not the character designs, the game looks terrific. Way better than I was expecting. I've heard Dragon Quest VII is a little bit of a tedious game, so I don't know if I'm going to try this one out, especially because it's coming out on February 2nd, and February is just turning into a really stacked month for video games, but I'm happy for Dragon Quest fans because they have just been eating this last year, and I think the fact that Square Enix is doing so many Dragon Quest remakes is a good sign for DQ12. Like, that game's gotta be close if we're remastering every single freaking Dragon Quest game. And speaking of those cutscenes again, man, imagine how freaking good Dragon Quest 12 is gonna look. If Dragon Quest VII Reimagined looks this good, Dragon Quest 12 is gonna look unbelievably cool. unbelievably beautiful. Can't wait for that. I think next year is going to be the year we see more of that game. But DQ7, pretty cool announcement. We then got easily the weirdest announcement of the show, Virtual Boy on NSO. Coming February 17th, which is weird because I don't think they've ever announced an NSO update and then waited months to release it, but it makes sense because you do need an accessory to use these. It's $100 for the big plastic version and just $25 for the cardboard version. This is very funny. Very funny. You know, Virtual Boy was an abject failure. It's like one of the biggest jokes in gaming history. It's cool that it's coming back, though. I didn't think Nintendo would go back and, preserve these Virtual Boy games, some of which are super expensive, and put them on their service. I might buy the cardboard version of this just to have the experience of playing the Virtual Boy games. I've never even thought about touching any of these games on an emulator or whatever, so it's really cool that they are preserving these and just continuing to add to this backlog of Nintendo Switch Online, Nintendo Classics. I think it's really cool what they're doing. It's turning into a really good deal. I know people just don't like paying for online in general. I get that, but man, $50 for all of these old Nintendo games I think is really sweet. And Virtual Boy isn't gonna, sell any units of this online service, but it's a really cool announcement. I thought it was really fun. We then saw Metroid Prime 4 finally, we have a release date for this freaking game, 8 years in the making, December 4th, which is about as late as they could have done it. So clearly this game needs all the time it can get to release, get finished, go gold, all of that stuff. I mentioned earlier, it seems like this game was supposed to come out November 6th, which I think was the area that a lot of us were thinking it was going to come out in, but it seems like they moved it back, because I don't know why you would have Metroid Prime 4 Amiibo releasing a month earlier than the game. Like, I can't think of any other reason that makes sense. Then it was delayed a month, but there was manufacturing stuff and they still had to release the Amiibos when they were expecting to. Regardless, I don't care when it's coming out. I'm just glad it's coming out this year. Really excited for it. It looks beautiful, as always. The motorcycle looks sick. Shout out to the people who were suggesting that there would be some sort of open zone or open world area because of the desert on the cover. That was a great call because that is exactly what we saw in the trailer. I am worried that this open world might be a little bit bland. It seemed a little empty from what we saw. There was one building, and then of course Samus was shooting at some enemy. I do hope there's fast travel in this game. I think it's going to get really tedious if you have to motorcycle drive from area to area, especially if there is an artifact hunt in this game, which is entirely possible. So yeah, hoping for some fast travel. That's my one issue with Prime 1 is the artifact hunt is a pain in the ass. But regardless, this looks terrific. I can't wait for Metroid Prime 4. God, it feels like we've been waiting. Well, it doesn't feel like we have been waiting for like 20 years. So I'm glad it's finally coming. We then got some DK Bonanza DLC Shadow Drop, which was cool. This was another point of contention for the Nintendo is greedy crowd, and again, I can't push back on that, $20 for some, maybe not the largest amount of DLC is a little disappointing, but from what we did get, it was pretty cool. DK Island is in the game now. That's awesome. Should have been there at the beginning, I think, but it seems really cool, seems really fun. And then you've got this roguelike mode out of nowhere. This seems really cool where you gotta work for Void Kong. I'm glad Void Kong's back. That's my goat. And you just like go hog wild on every layer and try to get as many gems as possible. I think this could be a really cool, thing to just throw a few minutes into every day. Just try to up your score, get better. There doesn't seem to be too much of a reward for it besides statues, which is still pretty cool. But I'm just glad DK Bonanza is getting some post-launch support, regardless of if it costs money or not. And again, that's out today, so I've already got it downloaded on my Switch. I can't wait to hop into that later today. Next up were a few Pokemon announcements. Pokemon Pokopia, which is just Animal Crossing Pokemon. What a weird announcement. We heard whispers of a Pokemon spin-off game being announced at this Direct, and when I heard that, I rolled my eyes. I said, oh my gosh, Pokemon spin-off. I was expecting a mystery dungeon or something I didn't care about, but this actually looks pretty cool. Again, it's an Animal Crossing type game, but with even more emphasis on crafting and expansion. I also love this gimmick where you learn the Pokemon's moves and then you use those moves to get further in the world or to, grow grass or to farm or to build something. I think that is such a smart way to do this game, to do a Pokemon Animal Crossing, to be Ditto, that's the main character, is Ditto, and copy Pokemon's abilities that you meet along the way. I think that is so genius. This game weirdly is being worked on by Koei Tecmo, which is, first of all, they don't freaking sleep, man. It's like every month there's a new Koei Tecmo game. Secondly, that gives me a little more confidence that this could be a really good game because I do trust in Koei Tecmo and what they've been doing these last few years. So I am excited to see how this game turns out. Another 2026 game. There's just so much coming in 2026 for Nintendo and the industry writ large. Can't wait. We also then got Pokemon Legends ZA DLC announced. Apparently this is $30. So if you buy the Pokemon Legends ZA Switch 2 edition and the DLC, you're spending a cool $100 on Pokemon Legends ZA. I wasn't even sure if I was going to pick up the main game of Pokemon Legends ZA. Definitely not going to pick up the DLC. Like many people said, kind of weird they'd announce it before the game comes out, but other series do that. It's not the weirdest thing in the world, and it is nice for Pokemon fans. I mean, God, they're going to be eating good. I mean, you've got Pokemon Legends ZA this October, you've got Pokopia next year, Pokemon Champions next year, presumably Gen 10 next year, Pokemon DLC next year. I mean, my God, I know it's the 30th anniversary in 2026, but man, we are doing a lot of Pokemon next year. Oh my goodness. We then got the weirdest announcement of the Direct in my eyes, Danganronpa 2 X2. That's right, Danganronpa 2 is getting a remake, which is so weird. This game looks completely different than the original Danganronpa 2. I played Super Danganronpa 2 in 2023, not the original, but this game looks completely different. It seems like the sprites are new, there's weird animations they do, the UI looks completely redone, the areas look different. Apparently Kaz Kadaka is not writing this, but only overseeing it, so that's kind of weird, but also he's been doing so much recently. Like, he had 2 games come out this year. I don't know how that guy does it, so, if he has to dip into the Danganronpa bag every so often to make some more money off of it so we can get more 100 lines, I have no issues with it. We're also getting a parallel story to Danganronpa 2 in this remake, so sort of like Danganronpa If, but an actual game, which is really cool. It is a bit frustrating to me as a Danganronpa fan that they're putting this much effort into a Danganronpa 2 remake because I don't think it really needs a remake. And I've always wanted them to turn Danganronpa 0 or Danganronpa If into an actual visual novel. I think that would be so cool, and that would have been perfect for the anniversary, especially Danganronpa If, because that plays off of Danganronpa 1, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. I can still dream for that in the future. Again, that would just be a perfect release. If Kaz doesn't want to do Danganronpa anymore, I get that, but turn Zero and turn If into actual visual novel games. I think that'd be so cool, especially Zero, because that is just straight up a full Danganronpa narrative, and I think that would be perfect to have in the same style as the first 3 games. Anyway, off of my soapbox, it's cool we're getting more Danganronpa. I will 100% be there day one playing this crap, so, they've got me. Danganronpa 2, one of my favorite games ever. God, Chapter 5 of that game, so good. Play it if you haven't. I would just play the original SDR2 that's on Switch right now, but if you want to wait for the remake, I guess you could. Weird announcement. And obviously people were freaking out on Twitter over this, good and bad. Some very funny reactions to this. We then get a date for Monster Hunter Stories 3, which I don't think I'm going to play, but I wanted to mention it because, God, Capcom is just ridiculous. I mean, their 2026 is insane. They're dropping Resident Evil on the 27th, and then 2 weeks later are dropping Monster Hunter Stories 3. How are they doing it? I know they have a lot of teams, but God, Capcom is just going insane in 2026, and I love it. Speaking of Capcom, I think this was the biggest announcement of the Direct. Resident Evil Requiem, not only announced for Switch 2, not only announced for a day-and-date release for Switch 2, but also, we got a whole new trailer for Requiem at this Direct. I mean, this is something that never happens for Nintendo. And I almost want to make a video about this, but this is something that Nintendo fans have to accept, is that, and I am a Nintendo fan too, like I'm not singling anyone out, but something that Nintendo fans have to accept is that the big announcements at Directs are not just going to be first-party games anymore. This is a new era of Nintendo that has a powerful system that can get these big third-party games day and date. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we've had 2 Directs in the Switch 2 era, the April 2nd one and now the September 12th one. And you could argue that the biggest announcement at both of those Directs was a third-party game. In April 2nd, it was a new FromSoft game, The Duskbloods, exclusive to Switch 2. And at this Direct, it was a Resident Evil Requiem port, launching day and date on the Switch 2, with a new story and gameplay trailer at a Nintendo Direct. That is a huge deal. I will probably be picking this up on PS5, but I'm super excited to see Resident Evil Requiem on the Switch 2. It's one I might double dip on if I really like Requiem. Down the line, when this game is inevitably on sale, because it's a Capcom title and they love to put those games on sale, I would love to, try this out in handheld mode. And if you are a Nintendo-only gamer, I implore you to check out Requiem when it comes out on February 27th. It looks like it's going to be awesome. It looks like a really good port from what we've seen. I know we only saw about 3 minutes of footage, but it seemed like it was running well. It seemed like it looked pretty good. Obviously, the RE engine is really scalable, so that's not a huge surprise. But yeah, I think this might have been the most consequential reveal of the Direct. It's not the one that gets me the most hyped, obviously, because I can just play it on PlayStation regardless. But I think in terms of importance and in terms of just showing what the Switch 2 can do, this was a huge announcement. And again, we are in an era where I think if you're looking for a bunch of first-party announcements, you might not get that at Nintendo Directs because they have the capacity to have big third-party announcements now. And again, we still got like 5 new first-party announcements. Like, it was still a pretty good Direct for first-party. But there are also going to be big third-party games routinely announced or shown off at Nintendo Directs, and I think we just all have to accept that. In terms of the trailer itself, it really does look sick. I mean, it does seem a little darker, a little scarier, which is cool. We still haven't seen Leon, who apparently is playing a big role in this game. I'm getting more skeptical of that by the day, although Tokyo Game Show is coming up, so maybe we'll see a new trailer there, or a new trailer at the State of Play that presumably is coming in a few weeks. But yeah, this game just looks freaking awesome. I'm so glad it's on Switch 2. We're also getting RE7 and RE8 on the Switch 2. Oddly enough, these 2 games are coming out the same day as RE9, which makes no sense to me. I don't know why they're doing that. But again, if you have only had a Switch and haven't had a chance to check out these games, oh my gosh, they are terrific. I think RE7 is one of the best survival horror games of all time, and people give RE8 a lot of crap for being campy and silly, but I thought it was terrific as well. Even if you're not a huge fan of the series, I think RE7 is a great place to jump in. It's such a good game, so I recommend it to everybody. I'm glad they're finally on Nintendo consoles. It is weird they're coming out the same day as RE9, but who am I to say? And then it was time for the closer, and the closer was Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. I thought this trailer was terrific. If you're not a Fire Emblem fan, you were probably very disappointed at this, both closing the Direct and also not being the most action-packed trailer ever. But I think this was the exact trailer that Fire Emblem needed. Coming off of Engage, which, I never finished, but from what I played of it, I didn't think was terrible. I think people give that game way too much hate. The combat is great. The story is not the worst, though again, I didn't finish it, so I'll have to replay that before Fortune's Weave comes out to see if I really agree with that statement, that the story wasn't as annoying and anime and just blown up as people give it crap for. But I did agree with the thought that I think a lot of people had, which was that Fire Emblem needed a more grounded and serious story for its next entry. This seems to be exactly that. I mean, there was a lot of cool little quotes that we heard in the trailer. The characters don't seem to be as flashy and anime-y. They're a little more grounded in their design. And it seemed like from the first trailer that there was not an avatar character. It looks like we play as an actual character. Now, we could get more information about the game later and find out that that is not the case for sure. But from what we saw in that trailer, it does seem like we actually play as a character, which was one of my biggest complaints with Fire Emblem in general. Like, I don't want to play as an avatar character. I want to play as an actual freaking character, like in Xenoblade. I'm really hoping that I'm right about that it seems like you don't just play as an avatar. It is also connected to Three Houses in some way. There's been some debate in the community. Is this a prequel? Is this a sequel? Is this an alternate timeline? Who knows? but it's definitely connected to Three Houses in some way, which is great because I think Three Houses is awesome. And of course, this game just looks beautiful. I mean, the Fire Emblem games on Switch did not look good, especially Three Houses. I hope we get Switch 2 versions in some regard for those games, whether they're updates or Switch 2 editions. I really hope we get some sort of upgrade for those games before we get Fortune's Weave. But regardless, this game looks terrific. I know a lot of people aren't into Fire Emblem. I know especially in like the Smash community, people really don't like Fire Emblem. I think that's annoying. I think people are annoying about how much they don't like Fire Emblem. I like Fire Emblem. This looks terrific. I can't wait for this game. It's coming out in 2026. I was a little disappointed we didn't get a window for this. I thought this would be a spring 2026 type release. I guess it could still come out in May or June. Possible that it comes out, middle of the year in 2026. Maybe it is an August or September game. I'm hoping it's sooner than later though, because this game does look really darn cool. So those are all the announcements from the Direct that interested me, and overall, I just thought it was a really darn good Direct. I mean, we got 6 new first-party games if you count the Galaxy ports and the Super Mario Bros. Wonder Switch 2 edition, as well as updates on games like Prime 4 Beyond and Hyrule Warriors, which people didn't think were going to come out this year. That was a serious concern in the community. We got dates for this year for those games. And then we even got an update for Tomodachi Life, which I did not expect at this Direct. And it's coming out in spring 2026. So I think that's going to be the March game. Like, my prediction is that game is going to come out in March and be their big closer to their fiscal year. And it's just shocking to me that people are complaining about Nintendo and the Switch 2 in general not having enough games, because it's like, I don't know, I'm looking at the lineup right here. I'll put a picture in the video, but like, their 2026 is looking pretty darn good. And we know Nintendo. We know they announce stuff, in June for September. Like, they do not often announce games years in advance. And especially recently with Nintendo, they do not announce games years in advance. I know people wanted to see that from this Direct. And of course, I would have liked to see a teaser for 3D Zelda coming in 2027 or something. But that's just not how modern Nintendo operates. And I think people expecting that coming into this Direct were going to be disappointed no matter what. Because unless there was an Animal Crossing game coming in April, which obviously there isn't, we weren't going to see it here. I think there could still be an Animal Crossing in 2026. I think there could still be a 3D Mario in 2026. I think there could still be a Monolith Soft game in 2026. But if it's not coming until the last few months of the year, there's no reason for them to reveal it here when they already had, again, 6 first-party titles revealed, if you count some of the less exciting stuff like Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. But that's the internet for you. They will just complain about anything. It's a problem I think is just rampant in the video game industry in general. Like, people complain all the time about how, the Xbox Series and the PS5 don't have any games. And I think the last 2 years for both of those consoles have been pretty good, and I think they are improving in terms of their output as well. But, people don't want to give them credit for it. And, you don't need to give the mega corporations credit. I'm not saying that. But being honest with myself, I really enjoyed this. Oh, Jesus Christ. I have my microphone on like a moving thing on my desk, so that's not a good idea. But yeah, I think this Direct was great. I don't think the pacing was incredible. I think that was the big issue, was that it was 60 minutes long, and I think they could have shaved it to 45 or 50 if they really wanted to. So I think people forget, and even I forgot, like when I was writing my rundown for this Direct, I forgot about Pokopia until I looked at the list again. I said, oh, we got a new Pokemon game exclusive to Switch 2 announced at this thing. Like, there was a lot to run through that I think was easy to forget. But if I told you coming into a Direct, we're going to get a new Mario Sports game that looks terrific, a new Yoshi game that looks great, a new Pokemon spin-off, a new Fire Emblem game, dates for Prime 4 and Hyrule Warriors both coming this year, and a window for Tomodachi Life coming in spring, which is a lot earlier than any of us would have expected, I think we all would have said, that's a pretty good Direct. So for me, I would give it a B or a B+. If it had that big tentpole title like an Animal Crossing or a 3D Mario, that would have made it an A for me. And I think that is what this Direct was missing, and I think it is why a lot of people were disappointed, because they're looking for that big next-gen experience, right? If Monolith came out with an RPG that was just so expansive and so beautiful, or 3D Mario just took the Bowser's Fury formula to the next level, or if Animal Crossing had all these collaborative game chat type, features in the game, people are waiting for that kind of next-gen experience that I don't think we have seen yet, admittedly. Like, that is the one thing that was holding this Direct back, in my opinion, from being one of their best, is that, look, if I was running Nintendo, even if we don't have another big game for 2026, knowing that this was the first Switch 2 Direct since the launch of the system, I would have just thrown in a teaser for Zelda or Animal Crossing or 3D Mario, even if they are over a year out, because I think it was important to get people hyped for something a little more further out. But that's not what Nintendo does, right? That is not how they've operated since COVID. And I will say that's what made the Splatoon Raiders thing so weird to me, because imagine if we just threw Fire Emblem in the middle and then Splatoon Raiders closed this Direct, and we saw a little more gameplay than we did on Nintendo Today in June. I think people would be talking way differently about this Direct, because a lot more people like Splatoon. It's a new Splatoon spin-off. From what we saw of it, that game looks pretty darn cool. But for whatever reason, they just quietly announced that game on Nintendo Today. I think if they just saved that for the September Direct, a lot less people would be complaining today. Obviously, the prices are a separate issue. I'm mad about the prices. We're all mad about the prices of, Galaxy and Galaxy 2 being $40 each, and this, that, and the other. It's annoying. But in terms of the games and the content themselves, not anything auxiliary, I thought it was a really darn good presentation, and one that gets me excited for the future of the Switch 2, because we just saw a lot of freaking games, and a lot of them are coming out early 2026. And again, I'll put up the list of games here once more. That's a lot of stuff, and again, I still think we're going to get Gen 10 next year. I still think there's something like a Monolith Soft game, or an Animal Crossing, or a 3D Mario, or something else to be another tentpole title. I still think we're going to get that next year. So, I don't know. I think it's going to be a great year for gaming in 2026, Nintendo included, and I think this Direct just solidified that for me. But I want to know, what are your thoughts? Tell me in the comments below, what would you grade this Nintendo Direct? What was your favorite announcement? And were you satisfied with the number of announcements we saw today, and in general, with Nintendo's 2026 lineup? Make sure to like the video, subscribe, hit that big, fat button. Got some stuff I'm working on for the channel, and I've also got some new video ideas now with the reveals of Mario Tennis Fever and Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave and all this stuff. I'd love to do, more deep dives on those videos as well. So if you're interested in that, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss anything I do on this channel. And with all that said, I'll see you guys in the next one.